Two proudly right-wing, self-proclaimed misogynists who become some of the most powerful influencers of the so-called manosphere, Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan, were arrested in Miami on Saturday on the way to a bare-knuckle boxing event. You see them there in the purple. That's Andrew Tate. They're now awaiting possible extradition to England under what British authorities call pending ongoing legal proceedings. While the men were already both facing charges in England, which they deny, the Crown Prosecution Service announced the following, quote, Andrew Tate is being charged with 7 further counts of rape, 3 counts of arranging or facilitating trafficking for sexual exploitation, 3 counts of assault occasioning actual bodily harm, and 19 additional charges for offenses relating to indecent images of a child and extreme pornography. Tristan Tate is being charged with 1 count of sexual assault, 2 counts of rape, and 3 counts of arranging or facilitating trafficking for sexual exploitation. The brothers have long denied all charges against them in every country investigating them. In a statement, their lawyer said, quote, the world knows Andrew and Tristan Tate are innocent. They have something of a storied legal history. Early last year, they were effectively kind of living in a kind of exile in Romania. They couldn't leave the country because they were under criminal prosecution. There was an investigation there into multiple allegations against the 2 men, including human trafficking, coercing women to pornography, and an allegation that Andrew had sex with a 15-year-old, beating her with a belt and choking her until she passed out. That's per the New York Times. The New Yorker reports that one 15-year-old told Romanian investigators that during sex, quote, even though I asked Andrew to stop, he continued. Again, both brothers deny any criminal activity at all. But as the New York Times also reports, the brothers had cultivated relationships with many people in Trump's inner circle, including his sons Barron and Don Jr., as well as Trump's former personal attorney, Alina Habba, and conservative media personalities like Tucker Carlson, who interviewed the brothers quite favorably. The Times reports that the Trump special envoy, Rick Grinnell, also in the Trump circle, even discussed the Tate's case with 2 Romanian officials in 2024 after Trump won, and then early 2025 as he was preparing to take office. Now, Grinnell denies having a substantive conversation about the tapes, though that would seem to indicate they did talk about it. For the Trump's part, neither Don Jr. nor the White House gave the Times comment on the Tate's relationship with Trump's oldest and youngest sons. The White House told the Times it is not involved in anything related to the Tate's legal matters. But here's the thing. The brothers started to get some good news not long after Trump won the 2024 election. They're sitting in Romania. They can't leave. Quote, I had word from the Trump admin that they're on top of things, Andrew Tate wrote to someone close to him in a message reviewed by the New York Times. I've been told I'll be free soon, but Trump needs to see me in Miami, he added. And sure enough, soon after, in February of 2025, the Romanian government, again, which had these sort of pending allegations against them, said, actually, they're free to go. They can leave the country. And immediately they did. In fact, they came to Florida. That's the same state, of course, where a Trump ally once granted a generous deal to another man accused of human trafficking, Jeffrey Epstein. President Trump says he knows nothing about the conditions of the Tate's travel ban in Romania being lifted. Alina Habba denied any role as well. But what happened was Trump got elected. They got let out of Romania. They came back to the U.S. But the brothers' legal team appears to have borrowed a strategy from Trump world, telling reporters after a hearing yesterday that the Tates are facing a witch hunt, that the cases against them in Romania and the UK are essentially a kind of fabrication. Brothers also remain apparently well-connected in some right-wing circles. In fact, just days before their arrest in Miami, the British tabloid The Daily Mail reported that Tates were spotted around Washington, D.C. as guests of a Trump friend, associate, the special envoy Paolo Zampoli. The Tates even apparently took a photo, you see there, with Texas Republican Congressman Wesley Hunt. Both the Daily Mail and MS Now reached out to Hunt's office, and we have not heard back. Megan Twohy's investigative reporter from the New York Times, where she's extensively covered the Tate brothers, and she joins me now. The legal trail here is complicated because it involves multiple jurisdictions. There were cases being sort of pursued in the UK and in Romania. But walk us through what happened, what development happened in the UK's possible prosecution to prompt the arrest and the attempt of an extradition.
Yeah. So this week really was a significant turning point with regards to the Tates and the legal investigations of them. Up until Saturday, up until this weekend, they had been under criminal investigation in Romania. And there had been several charges of rape and human trafficking authorized by British prosecutors. But there had been this agreement that the prosecutors, that the British prosecutors wouldn't move forward until the Romanians were done with their investigation, with their criminal case. And then the brothers would be extradited from Romania to the UK. Now, what clearly has happened in recent weeks is that the British prosecutors have charged them with new crimes, alleged crimes. They're now, they had previously charged them with rape and assault and human trafficking, and now they've brought additional charges of rape, sex trafficking, and significantly those seemingly pornography, including a child pornography charge. And with those new charges, they have issued an extradition request to the United States because the Trumps have, since they were released from Romania, been traveling around the world. They resumed their their jet-setting lifestyle. They've been in Dubai, they've been in Turkey, and they've been returning to the United States. Notably, they have not gone back to the UK. And so an extradition request came in from the UK to the United States, to the Justice Department, saying, we're authorizing these new charges, and we would like you guys to issue a warrant for their arrest and extradite them back to the UK. And the federal officials here in the United States complied. So since their arrest on Saturday that you've seen images of, they have been in federal detention in Miami, and federal prosecutors have been basically arguing the case for extradition in court there. And the Tates are fighting that. Their lawyers are continuing to say this is all just politically motivated and that they're completely innocent of any crimes.
A little context here that I feel like is important for folks that don't know. I mean, Andrew Tate particularly developed an enormous following online, particularly with young men. Obviously, connections to people in Trump's orbit. They became a kind of cause célèbre of conservatives. I just saw a video today of the late Charlie Kirk talking about how people should listen to what Andrew Tate says about an overly feminized society. And also, I mean, this is sort of key context, like the whole thing that they marketed, and in some ways would charge people for, was to learn how to develop tools of psychological manipulation and coercion so as to get women to do sex work for you that you could make money off, essentially, right? I mean, that was a huge part of what their whole public profile was.
Yes, it was. I mean, what was sort of interesting and remarkable about them is that they basically created a business and helped gain followers of young men by bragging about the fact that they had operated an online porn business and by saying that they had actually exploited women and coerced them into participating in that porn business and that they would take most of the profits. They sold online courses to that extent, saying, there was one course that was called the Pimping Hose degree, where they said, listen, we're going to teach you the kind of tricks of the trade that we've used to exploit women and make money off of them. And so that really kind of wove that into their public image as they gained followers, not just for these online courses, but just a broader online following of young men who were attracted not just to their kind of financial savvy and their brazen masculinity and misogyny, but to some of the broader messages that they were bringing about the need for men to kind of regain their place in society and to push women down. And as they did this, they made these very sort of strategic, mutually beneficial alliances into the American right, even as criminal allegations of trafficking and rape multiplied against them, both in Romania and in the UK. We also learned that they had been under investigation here in the United States by anti-trafficking agents, as well as prosecutors in the Justice Department. But in spite of this, their messaging and the way that they connected with particularly a young male demographic that became crucial to Trump's return to power, they were able to make strategic alliances with people in the Trump family, from Don Jr. to Barron Trump. We were able to show was communicating with Andrew Tate by Zoom as recently as 2024 when the presidential race was going on. They talked about the criminal case against them in Romania at the time and how they both agreed that it wasn't substantial or wasn't legitimate. The Tates have also made alliances with Trump advisors, from Richard Grenell, who you mentioned, who was the special diplomatic envoy who discussed the Tates once Trump was after he was reelected, and then entered his second administration. Grenell had conversations he wasn't just sort of publicly supporting the Tates, he was also having conversations with Romanian political figures about their case. And so it was, and they also had formed these alliances with people like Tucker Carlson as he was leaving Fox and trying to build his new audience and his new show. He went to Romania and sat down with Tate while he was first indicted in Romania. And basically, it was a very warm, friendly interview in which they actually misrepresented the criminal charges against him.
Yeah, and we should just note that if folks want to learn more, that you're great reporting in the New York Times. There's an incredible piece in the New Yorker as well, and just to note that there are, again, these are allegations and or charges. They are not proven, and the two men deny them. But there are multiple people, both named and anonymous, who accuse them of rape, violent rape, physical abuse, sexual coercion, essentially grooming underage girls for sex work and streaming it. I mean, it's a very long list of accusations here. If people want to learn more about them, this is not something that came out of nowhere. I think it's fair to say at this point, even as they were establishing these relationships and getting the friendly interviews with Tucker Carlson. Megan Twohey, who's been doing amazing reporting on this beat, her work is in the New York Times on the latest twist and turn here. Thank you, Megan. Appreciate it.